Hello again.
Hello again, Guardians. Thank you for coming to us again today. It's always a special moment for me to be sitting here in front of you. And the summer's arrived here, so I've actually got a t-shirt on today. It's nice and warm and where I am, which is not usually the case. So what we've got prepared today has come from Susan. She just had a weekend with other QHHT practitioners, Quantum Healing Hypnosis Technique practitioners, and she just described a very interesting and fulfilling weekend she's had, connecting to energy and connecting to all sorts of things. So Susan's got some thoughts to discuss about QHHT, and it's just general. It's rather general thoughts rather than actual specific questions. So the first notion is the opening of consciousness through QHHT. So just to give a wee bit of a background for listeners, the practitioner will sort of put a client into a state of hypnosis, and depending on the client, it can be a very, very deep hypnosis where they're totally asleep, and it allows their higher self to come through really strongly. Or other times, the client can be very much aware, so they're still quite the way I believe it, they've still got a conscious mind while they're lying there listening. They're listening to everything, but it's still if the technique is done correctly, it still allows their higher self to come through. So, can you speak about the opening of consciousness and from a QHHT perspective and how you see it?
This modality helps to create a connection into the deepest parts of the soul, and to a point that a soul is ready to receive. And it is awakening back into source, into the healed frequency. And so when one is wanting to come in and experience that can awaken in different ways associated with the intention they are setting, and it allows a gateway essentially between the soul and the physical vessel to exchange frequency and energy in a way that creates outcomes.
Okay, so I understand what you've said there, but an interesting follow on from me was you say it opens a gateway to the soul. So when I'm speaking to clients and describing that, I often say, so it's connecting to your guides or your higher self or your guardian angel, and I try and I use these different labels because people will relate to the idea of soul in different ways. So when you say connect to the soul, can you explain what that actually is? How do you perceive the soul, and perhaps correct my definitions of it?
It is not necessary to correct as much as to it's all the different aspects that one exists through in evolution after experience and experience and experience. And when you open that gateway through QHHT, and you are essentially calling in the streams of consciousness that allow you to create reconciliation and healing associated with the intention that you have set, the questions that you come in with. And it is witnessing yourself through other experiences and expanding one's own understanding then within a conscious field that is embodying the growth, then the remembrance that is held within self. It's a reconnection to a more pure form of oneself. And therefore, when that is felt, that is remembered, and that is embodied.
Okay. So just so I understand what you're saying a bit more. So the soul would be a coming together of all the different existences and lifetimes, in a collective place. It'd be in the one place almost for the client to tap into through QHHT. Would that be right? So is that what you're saying? It's all their other existences are almost in that one place to be explored?
And this is correct. Again, associated with the intention, because there is so much that it needs that intention to anchor into what is relevant and leave what is not at that time.
Yeah. Now that's interesting. So in some QHHT sessions, a client may just come along out of interest and interest in the subject of discovering some past lives, and in that situation there might not be an intention set, so you wouldn't be going to the soul with a specific target in mind. You may, and in those situations, through our QHHT training, we would be saying that the higher self will give you what you need. So in that situation, that idea of giving the client what they need, then, so who would be choosing, if there's no intention to sort of choose the path, who would be choosing that path for the client then?
And they are still choosing as they go in. They are just it is like spinning a roulette wheel as to what one will access. So it's like a vehicle of exploration rather than co-creation and intention.
Okay, right. So the term soul or higher self or subconscious, within the QHHT sort of literature, the word subconscious is sort of used mostly, whereas I prefer to say higher self just because it stuck with me at some point. But today we've called it soul. Would it be correct to say those three terms are describing the same thing?
And another it is it seems that it is. And you're going to be taken to where you need, and the person is connecting to an aspect of their own consciousness, and whether you want to call it subconscious, higher consciousness, and the side soul, the higher soul, it is still all that person, that mind, body, soul, and asking for their own wisdom to be received.
Okay.
So, and same thing, yes.
Yeah. Okay. That's very clear for me, and clear for anyone here that's listening in. So the idea of your guides or your guardian angels, that may assist you and assist this process of someone discovering that past life or whatever or the information that they want to find out in that day, are they separate beings from the soul?
Yes, they are generally, and then those that are in co-collaboration, like supporting, like you have a network of friends here, and there is a network of other light beings that match your frequency and can assist in the journey, and for where you're at and what you're asking for, in spirit also.
Okay. Right. So Susan actually she termed the phrase opening consciousness. So what you've described to us actually where we go and what we're trying to reach, I suppose. But the process of opening, and sometimes with some clients it may be a different method is needed because they don't just go with the normal script that you would use for 90% of people. And even with the usual script that creates that opening, can you tell us what's actually happening? We always say there's a bit of magic within the script that creates that creates the access to the soul, to the higher self. Can you tell me more about that?
It's like in life. You are driving along a single lane highway and then you connect through QHHT and all of a sudden you are on a on a motorway, 4 lanes and you have that freedom to move forward in many different directions and create greater momentum. You have greater expanded frequency to the wisdom that is already yours of those experiences that have been had. It is opening the consciousness so that you can receive, and as you are experiencing that through the regression it's like every cell, every molecule, every energy center it's a remembrance that is being realized, and as it's realized, as it's recognized, it can be embodied so that when you come back to normal day to day, that is still within you. So that openness continues if you are willing to continue working with what you have received. Obviously, everyone has a choice. So it's a conscious embodiment also once you are out of that session.
Okay, thank you. I'm thinking now of actually the mechanics of that, almost opening that door, or what is the door that opens. So within sort of maybe a simple way of allowing a client to understand the process, we may say that their conscious mind, their awake mind that's listening to the conversation is the left side, and we're asking the left side to sort of be quiet and go to sleep for a couple hours to allow the right side, to the higher mind, to come through the right side of their brain. But that might just be a simplistic way of a client sort of getting a handle on it. I'm just wondering, what is the actual door? Are we going through some of the chakras, or going through certain points, maybe the pineal gland or other places that actually is the doorway that gets opened?
It appears that it depends on, as we've discussed in the past, the inner organs, the glands are like gateways to the inner realms. So as one is taken deeper into those deeper brain waves, it opens a door, but it feels like, depending on what a person needs to know, it opens into different areas or aspects of those inner gateways. So it would not seem that each person has the same experience, because each person is seeking a different aspect of an experience to bring forth that remembrance into the body. And then it is And then you go as within, so without. So even seeing that the joints, the organs are all portals to the inner realms. And when one realizes this, you can find the answers to recognize why there is stuck energy and resistance in an area of the body that creates discomfort, disease. So in that situation, there does not seem to be one simple answer.
Okay. So it seems to be that there's various doors, there may be many doors that can be used to access the soul or the subconscious, depending on the answers that are looked for.
And coming back to the intention that is being set, yes. And ideally, as one is opening through regressions to more and more expanded frequencies of consciousness, and then one can hold many doors open. But initially, you will enter through where it is most relevant for the energy intention that has been set.
Okay. How important is the practitioner to unlock a particular door? Would a practitioner, is the practitioner really handing the access over to the guides and the higher self to open the door that is needed that day, or would the practitioner actually have keys to say, no, we're going to go through this door, unknowingly have the keys to open a certain door rather than another door? I'm just wondering how, because Susan and I had a discussion about a practitioner in particular that we had energetic sessions with, and it just made me think, I wonder if that practitioner has the keys to unlock the door that takes you to an energetic type of experience.
Yes, you are correct. If you are if you recognize everybody has a specific signature, and that soul connection, some are connected in a closer proximity than others. So to practitioners that are vibrating at a distance will not have the same awakening effect as someone who you connect with, that you really feel that proximity and that resonance with. It can make a big difference to this is like helping to come home. This is like the signature frequency of John and Susan, that when they come together, they are activating, they are co-collaborating, they are creation in momentum. Whereas with others, you may be able to explore and reach information, but there is not the same same frequency activation or openness that happens. They can't hold space in the same way, and they can't be the vibrational support in the same way that someone who is soul linked in close proximity. So feeling when one wants to do a QHHT, feeling that person's energy and really does this feel right for me? Does this feel like a close proximity, or no, this doesn't feel right? Anyone could put you into a regression, but this can create a huge difference in the outcome.
Yeah. Well, that's almost Susan's last point on this message. She's asking, can you discuss the benefit of making sure the person doing the session, the practitioner with you, feels right, and why is that important? But you've just explained that there. Is that correct?
And the Koniya, even the Toto Dunya, and the Catania, and no Korean, the Gajita, those that are even those that are in close proximity and not that you feel drawn to. Some will it's like they hold the keys to awaken or activate, and someone else may hold the frequency that helps you expand and explore more. They hold different vibrational different vibrational bandwidths within the core field that are very unique. Each practitioner very unique. So Susan is a natural activator. When you two come together, you naturally activate each other into that next step. That is why, as a soul mission, this that you are brought together, even in this context, is optimal.
Thank you. Thanks. This is a fascinating discussion. I'm loving this. So thank you very much for your answers. It's quite exciting to be getting these answers about a subject I'm very passionate about, and it's great to be really digging into it. So the next concept Susan's written here on the idea of QHHT is clearing the memory field. So from my point of view, I'm assuming it means the practitioner being able to find past lives where there's been trauma or ancestral issues or contracts that are still existing that are needing torn up within a QHHT session, so that the client leaves the session unburdened by anything ancestral or any contracts that they may have made in prior lives that they were still affecting them in this life. Can you discuss those aspects and how they affect a person, and then how they can be released in QHHT, please?
This memory field that is reverberating through the matrix, and when there is unresolved energy, it is like debris, like pockets of information that are if you imagine a bubble of information and there is a matrix of networks, and it creates a disruption in the frequency and flow. So things are having to go, it's having to go around. And so if you've got lots of these little pockets in the memory field, and then that's also disrupting the way the organs and the body can function, the way the mind can form and flow, the neural networks wiring and firing, the way the mind can balance from left to right and right to left, and the overall capacity to think and function and bring everything into alignment, all sensory organs and systems, the divine abilities and traits of oneself, these bubbles of information, the debris is noise that is disrupting and talking distracting it is needing to be cleansed, like when you use like this, a computer, and you clear the cookies
Yeah.
and you clear the cache and defrag and it sorts everything out and allows the information to form, to flow, to become coherent.
Okay. Wow. So can you maybe just explore perhaps the concepts of sort of contracts that you may have made in past lives and how they can carry on to this life. Would that have been what? Would that be related to that debris that you spoke about?
Yeah, that is correct. That is part of it. The vows that have been made or promises in deep emotional energy that is connected to others that continue to pull you back into situations. These contracts, vows, promises, these agreements to energy, people that have been so long ago forgotten, but are still somewhere calling you back to still maintain that energy and frequency. Like if one was many times ago a soldier for the kingdom and a vow for absolute alliance to the king, and gives will away to just serve, no matter personal feelings or energy. And if that is then unresolved when one passes through, then that is somehow going to play out and play out. One may find themselves in the forces, again working for the government, or maybe in the police, or at that army, navy, these sort of situations that I know that, there is rules and regulations and dictatorship controlling what you can do, no free will, because that vow is still playing out over and over and over and over. And so these things need to be reconciled so people can release and allow freedom within their own self to make their own choices without that without the dictatorship of what has happened in the past still replaying in the present.
Okay, thanks very much for this, such a clear answer. So when something like this is discovered, whether you're a practitioner or whether you're a client, any person watching this thinking that they've got something hanging over them, how easy is it to let these go? Does something special need to happen, to like a ritual or a procedure need to happen to sort of dissolve these contracts or these vows that were made, or is it just a sort of an intention of the person to say, right, I'm no longer going to be ruled by that decision or that vow or promise that I made a long time ago?
And then, once it is recognized, once it is understood, then the power returns to oneself. The power of the mind is very profound. And when in regression, it is very easy, for one is connected to that aspect of themselves. They are co-collaborating, co-creating with their own self. And that agreement through the facilitator plays out for reconciliation and releasing of those contracts, those vows, agreements, promises. It allows for the healing of the energetic field, and that to recalibrate to it's like the ripples, the bubbles, we think smooths out the frequency, the color, the form, the sound, the flow of the totality of mind, body, and soul shifts. And the facilitator being able to guide one through to go, we see this, okay, are you ready to release? The client in their regression will agree because they can understand it now. And then we just go, okay, and it is done. the highest soul, always working in the highest favor, is just seeking to be recognized and then consciously gone.
Thank you. So my final question on this topic is, what allows these vows and promises to remain? Is it because they've been said so strongly with so much passion at some point, it creates energy that remains somewhere in the field? And if that is the case, why is it drawn back to the soul once they come back into 3D Earth?
It is associated to the emotional bandwidth, the amount of passion and energy that is associated when that is done. It becomes like a what some would call a spell. But it's like self-imposed, binding that energy until it is released and reconciled and healed from. So if one is if one is working in that role of that example, but they just don't care about that role. They don't feel it. They don't fully live and exist in that. And then they're just going through emotion, but not feeling it. They wouldn't carry it through. It is those that are so deeply passionate, and that energy vibration becomes stuck within stuck within the consciousness of the vessel, and that consciousness carries through because that is the wisdom that is evolving. They've had that experience to grow, to evolve through. There was something about that experience that they needed to ascend in themselves within their higher mission. But the emotion can get things stuck. And when that's stuck, wherever it is in the body, it needs to become released. It's just another consciousness. It's just another frequency that's very entangled and heavy.
Is it almost like it's an attachment, but it's not really a separate entity, but it's somehow it's remaining there as a pocket of energy, and it stays with the consciousness.
And you can, yes, and it can manifest in different ways. So people will then, if it becomes very toxic within them, it can appear as another consciousness attachment completely. Where in actual fact it is just like a reflection of the energy that they are trapped within themselves.
Okay. Thanks again. This is a fascinating conversation. So the next concept that Susan has written down is tapping into new abilities, and again, it's through the vehicle of QHHT, and it's a theme that Susan and I have spoken about with you here. For both of us, that we're always asking for upgrades and to unlock new things that are waiting for us. So, can you explain the concept of tapping into new abilities and how that might work through QHHT?
It is literally like the fastest way to reconnect to the purest part of your soul. Working with this methodology, you are, if you are working intentionally, you can access the the full spectrum of your light within its authentic signature, and you can then be calling that back in. So maybe not once, but you receive And then when you have when you have embodied that energy, then you do it again and you do it again, and you keep calling in those parts of self through who you are through evolution, and activating and calling back these parts of self, and also through the physical vessel of those abilities, those traits that are written into their genetic predisposition, but the ancestors have closed down. So it's like a dual highway of self with the genetic predisposition, and working influencing recreating the DNA, the structure, the coding, realigning everything to come back online. It's like the antenna within the vessel starts to ping in new ways. It starts to recognize new frequencies, and this is also the importance of having those close soul facilitators that feel right, because they are the it's like looking at a locked door, and the facilitator holds the key. They are, by the pure frequency they sit at, the key to help one unlock that ability or trait.
Okay. So just to sort of summarize that for my own understanding, through QHHT, the client is tapping into the wider soul that they have previously been, and then has the potential to access those different abilities that they've had in different existences and call it back in. And you're suggesting that you may not just want to do it once, you want to do it again and again and again to allow it to stick and to be I suppose, embodied and used in this form. Would that be?
It's important to understand, if you went from 0 to 100 with your abilities, you wouldn't cope. You may think you can, but it's too much. You wouldn't know who you are. It's an organic growth of embodiment and relearning, embodiment, relearning. It's rinse and repeat over and over to create a foundational essence within self that is rewriting the very DNA and etheric field of who you are.
Okay. It's a tantalizing concept that can even be done, and it makes me obviously want to pursue that type of thing. But I'm also wondering how many people are doing this type of thing in the world and really tapping into these other abilities. Are they and how they're existing and staying either very quiet and keeping these abilities to themselves, or perhaps it's people like Susan who are actually have abilities and who are helping people on a regular basis. And would that be true? Would Susan be one of these people that have tapped into these other abilities she's had and called them back to herself, and that's what she's now using in her practice when working with clients and working with energy?
And then the katanya 100%. But even you and every other facilitator, knowingly or unknowingly, you are holding a key. It is like one soul cannot cannot ascend on their own, not fully, because it takes many together there is a network that builds and strengthens that foundation. So when you find that person who feels right, and you get that key, it doesn't go away again. You remain, you are interwoven with that aspect. And just breathing it and being it and existing as it and allowing it to evolve until you know within yourself that you're ready for something else. It's not about becoming and shouting it out to everyone, because when one is in a space of reconnection and knowing, they are humble. They are just giving because they will be done through that vessel, pure divine vessel. They will be done. It is of service and within a pure heart. This is why we can connect, because it is a pure heart here. It is one of service to humanity, to the planet, and of bringing those connections of self, of this frequency that's being connected into the collective for all to receive and activate and heal and flow and find peace and movement within that.
Thank you very much for that answer. I don't think I've got anything else to ask about that at the moment, but I'm sure we'll come back to it on another day. The next concept she has given here is existing in neutrality, at the 0 point of all potential. Now, existing in neutrality makes me think that you're very much a balanced person that is not easily swayed by emotions, and you can just view the world from a neutral point of view and react with a rational mind and a good heart, I suppose. But adding on the 0 point of all potential then adds on a mystical angle from my sort of human viewpoint. So can you explore the idea of existing in neutrality and the 0 point of all potential?
Yeah, this is when one truly just exists in a sense of peace and tranquility and knowing. There is no need for seeking the when people are constantly looking outside of themselves. When one is in neutrality and that 0 point of potential, there is no need for that, because there is a knowing that whatever unfolds next is in where it is in perfect timing and in perfect alignment. It is just watching and existing from a higher perspective where where everything can be going on around you, and yet you still know and you still sit in that space of like a deep still pond where life is happening around you. There's the mountains and there's the valleys and there's the animals and there's the give and flow and back and forth of the world and nature, but you are still just this deep still pond, and you exist in that space of knowing and clarity and momentum as a result. That it's just an openness and connection with the all that is.
Okay. And how would that relate to QHHT? I suppose that's the theme that Susan's exploring here. So where would that be found in a QHHT session? Maybe I'll answer my own question. I suppose that there's times that a client will, in between lives, so when they've had an experience and then they move on to somewhere else and you're moving them on, they may find that they're in the beautiful white place, or they may find they're in heaven. I'm putting quote marks here to give it another name, and they find the bliss and the peace, and they feel as if they could stay there for a long time. Would that be the 0 point of potential?
Yeah, it is perhaps a glimpse of, but the 0 point of potential exists within the mind, body, soul, here and now, in this moment. So QHHT is it is clearing those ripples, the memory field, the noise. And when the noise is cleared, it's like the soul becomes still. It's no longer vibrating in constantly different reactive energies or influences being triggered from outside of self, but rather sits in this field of potentiality that all things can form from. Does this make sense?
It
Trying to
does.
think of another way to explain,
Oh,
maybe.
that's a great way to explain it. It's perfect. So QHHT is a tool to allow the client to reach that point by exploring their past lives, asking the questions, finding the answers, clearing the contracts, and just getting them to a nice, peaceful place where they can then say, from here, anything can happen, because they're in a good place.
Yeah, yes, that is where intentional living and really leading from the heart space starts to co-create the reality you want to live, rather than being triggered by that influence or that person or that situation or whatever else is going on, or just simply for some people waking up to a day is being triggering. And yeah, it helps one come back into a centered peace and yeah, reflective. It is, as we say, like a deep still pool of energy.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So she's now got a sort of a paragraph here, but I'll take it one or two lines at a time. So she's asking about exploring the power of QHHT as a system of finding out information. So that's a powerful part of QHHT, where the client gets past life information, but they also then get to speak to their higher self and ask questions. So I suppose my angle or to ask is, do we use that to the limits of the potential? So are the questions we ask good enough? Are they deep enough? How do we make them more profound?
To be assertive in the way the questions are asked, to not just seek information, but to create resolution to what is being found within that information. It is not just simply about knowing you have done that or done that or done that. Your soul is multi-dimensional. It is existing in many time frames, dimensions, existences. It is beyond conception of the experiences that could be tapped into and called back to activate within self. So just seeking information is like reading an old encyclopedia, but not really absorbing the information there. Whereas if one recognizes, reconciles, and calls back those parts of the light and the wisdom, then it's like suddenly things start to awaken. The language of the soul, the momentum of the heartbeat within the DNA starts to change and shift, because that field of information is then clearer and more congruent in whatever form it's being called in. So working very intentionally to not just seek information, but to heal and activate into the highest reality. And this is good.
Thank you. That's an answer I'll need to go back and listen to from my own QHHT learnings, as well the whole interview. It's been amazing and fascinating. A real pleasure to be here, getting this education. So I think we may have touched on this, but the next concept is the resolution of life and soul patterns. So would that be relating to those contracts and those ancestral things, clearing all those up? Or would there be anything else?
Yes, somewhat. It's if people can recognize and maybe one is wanting to know why in life they keep repeating the same cycle with the same type of person. Keep going back into the same type of relationship, or keep responding and triggering in the same way to a situation, or a fear will not reconcile itself, then these are things that can be sought to resolve those patterns, to resolve the wounded energy and the emotion that's being trapped. And as it's released, allow greater flow and openness, and then those things are then able to be resolved, and again coming back into a greater still point where more clarity, more definition can be found within every thought. The mind is such a powerful tool when it is used correctly, even even when it's not correctly, but people acting and living in a triggered reactive momentum continue to do so because that's the wheel they're trapped on. So to break the cycle, and starts to rewire so that one can live in an assertive, peaceful, knowing cycle instead, where all potentiality is forming and flowing because you feel different. You don't feel the wounded energy. You feel the breath and the ease and grace and the beauty and connection of life around you.
Thank you very much for a beautiful answer. So I'll read the next statement out. So again, I'll just put the start of the sentence. So the power of the QHHT as a system for asking and assertively receiving healing, and for people like you and me, Susan and John, on an ascension journey, awakening Kundalini, psychic and divine connection through a soul remembrance. Can you speak about those concepts?
Very similar to what we have said. The more you continue to access that part of your soul, the more you can reconcile, and each time you're creating like a momentum that's getting faster and faster and faster, guiding you back to home within. So it is everything we have just spoken about, but it is working with that intention of divine soul and the abilities and traits fully returning in their truest form in a way that can be it can be received in this life. So the intelligence of the soul will take that information as it's called back, and it'll write it and form it and flow it in a way that can be received in the reality you're living.
Okay. So we've got to the end of Susan's question, but I'd like to go back a bit and actually give you an example of myself and how that speaks on some of the topics that you've covered. So when I had a session with Susan before, she felt as if I had a blockage. And she said it felt like a vow. It's a thing she said a few times. It feels as if there's a vow being made by me or an aspect of my soul at some time a long time ago that something will never happen again. And it was, and I think I can't remember the exact, so we've got it recorded somewhere, but I think it was almost like the power will never come back again, or those abilities will never be allowed to come back again, and that vow was made. So, but I would very much like, so it's almost that's about clearing the memory field. So I suppose I maybe need to have an aspect of my memory field cleared, to allow me to then tap into new abilities or call those abilities back into myself. And I think over the past year, the clearances have been happening, but I think it's happening in layers. It's coming off in small bits rather than being totally removed to allow me to fully embody everything. But as you said, it would be impossible for anyone to get 100% of their abilities immediately because they would never be able to handle it. So I suppose are you able to read my energy at the moment and see if there is such a thing as a blockage that may have been a vow to stop anything happening in the past?
Yes. And it feels like you have already been working on it and it is already releasing. And yeah, there are just some shadows of it really, and yeah, within the field. That and yeah, as you were talking, the energy is already shifting through the spine and these waves of energy, allowing it to shift and find a greater bandwidth of energy as you recognize that that was made in wounded energy, and you no longer need to embody that it can be released now and reconciled. Yeah. And it felt to be constricting down through the spinal channel near the ribs, solar plexus area, maybe heart, somewhere. But
I can feel a slight tension there actually, and it's maybe just me believing it was the way I was sitting and slightly slumped over, but
that is releasing. It feels the left side of the body down through the energy pathways into the earth star and below, and then realigning, and then through the left, and then reconnecting and aligning all those channels to flow.
so I think we've spoken for an hour, really on the one topic, and it's been a great discussion. Thank you for all of the amazing information you gave me. Not some of it; it's all been amazing. So I haven't even got on to my thoughts for today, but I feel as if I should at least touch on them, and we might leave some of them, the bigger discussion, to another day. But it's linked to QHHT. So the first time I ever had a QHHT session, which I may have discussed with you, I had a strong energy experience in it. And then my third session as a client, I'm talking as when I was a client, I had another strong energy experience. And this was with a practitioner that both Susan and I know. And it felt like it was hard to, I'm not really sure whether it was an out of body experience, which it felt like it could have been, but it may also been a Kundalini experience. But in that session, I seen the vision of me escaping. If I actually did, I seen myself going out of body in that. But then when I did that, the energy build up through my body, from my root up through my body, was amazing. And I felt it getting so far, like the middle of my back, and then the energy would burst out through my chest. And it happened 4 or 5 times, and I was laughing my head off and crying my eyes out because it was so intense and beautiful and just so pleasurable. It was amazing. And also the release of getting out was I felt as if I'd achieved something. So that achievement also made me want to cry my eyes out through happiness. But that's only 2 experiences. I've now had 12 energy experiences. 2 I've had in sleep, just going to sleep and then waking up having them. I've had 4 from gateway meditation experiences where I felt as if I was getting out of body. I've had 1 in yoga nidra a few weeks ago that I may have explained to you, but it was almost like only in my head, and it only came on in my head, and it was like real. It was almost like the most intense vibrations that I felt I couldn't handle, so I kind of drained myself. But very recently, over the weekend, I've had three energy situations in meditation where I've been. It feels like it's Kundalini awakening, but also mixed with this almost out of body experience. So I suppose I could have lots of questions on it, and this is the very end of the recording. But I suppose since I had that very first energy experience, and then from 2024, when someone said to me, "You've got something going on with energy, you'll need to explore it," I've been on that exploration. So probably to finish today, I'll ask the question of what do you see that I've got going on with me from an energetic point of view? Why do I keep getting these energy experiences? And
Yeah, you are calling them in, you are seeking them, so they will be given to you. You get what you ask for. In saying that, it is important to remember that a Kundalini journey, as you call it, it does not look and feel the same for every person. You are unique. You are a unique signature, and as Susan has learned over this last weekend, in awakening, what she experienced is not written in the books in the same way, and yet it was still very real. This is learning to trust that what you are feeling and experiencing is your energy popping open in different ways, awakening you to those divine abilities and traits that you are seeking with so much passion and purpose and commitment. The commitment and the perseverance, the discipline to keep seeking and to stay true to that, to the light, to the unconditional love, to being the divine vessel where they will be of service, they will be done, they will be the embodiment of truth. This awakens these pockets of energy which are going pop, 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 pop in your energy field, all leading to absolute activation in the bigger picture.
okay, thank you. That's a lovely answer to receive for now, and I'm sure it can be explored much more in another day. Now we're just over the hour. So, but to finish, as usual, I'm very forgetful, and I should have asked for clearing or upgrades right at the very start. But to finish today, would it be possible now to balance my energy, balance Susan's energy, and anyone else that's watching if they want to receive from you, just to stabilize their energies and leave us in a good, nice balance for the end of the session?
We would also like to make sure the codes are still harmonized and coherent, as Susan has received much over the weekend, and to bring you back into a vibrational alignment of flow, so that the shared journey is most optimal. Is this okay?
Yes, please.
Just calling on the expansion of the consciousness of Gaia to rise up and through the elements, the divine realms, and coming into the seed portal where you both sit, and creating a fluency and connection, a movement, a rhythm, and bringing all color spectrum online. Very harmonizing, and you're allowing. Just optimizing those central fields, the vortex within, the magnetic field resetting and harmonizing. How do you feel?
Feel great, thank you. I could feel, I can still feel it here and in my crown as you were working. Just the slightest pressures of movement and various pulses and intakes of breath that was needed while you were doing the work.
It's good.
Thank you very much. So once again, thank you very much for all of the information given to us today. Each week just gets more and more delightful and intriguing and informational, and I never think the previous week is going to be better than yet. It feels like it's been better again. So thanks very much again for everything.